I'm Colin Woodard. I'm the author of a book called The Rebuplic of Pirates, which is a history of the Golden Age pirates upon whom Assassin's Creed is drawing and is the setting for much of the game. And as a result, I guess there was some, it was used as a source document as they were developing it, and then I was contacted and played the role of a historical script consultant, looking at the script they developed and helping improve in details, finding things that weren't quite accurate to the time period in the dialogue or objects they were referring to or locations, to try to make it as accurate as possible so that it would be as immersive and engaging and believable as possible. Yeah, if it's, they're trying to create a historically accurate setting, but of course you have all of the assumptions and mythology and storyline and plot of the greater Assassin's Creed series. So you're merging the two together. So for them, it's an art of trying to be as accurate to history as you can, while also being, in some level, this fantasy game and fantasy universe. And I think in that context, they did an excellent job with it. I mean, it's the attention to detail that the lead scriptwriter, Darby McDavitt, had by the time I came on board. The level to which he had immersed himself in the details of the time period and the characters and what was going on in that world, it was impressive how much they had done and how much of the spirit of that time period is evoked in the script they created. Of course, it's not trying to be retelling like a documentary the history of those times, but in terms of drawing accurate spirit and details, it does a better job than most TV and film you see out there of these pirates. So I was very impressed. Yeah, the Golden Age of Pirates, there's a lot of blank periods that we don't know what happened. I mean, even the details of what these people looked like. We have no pictures that anybody drew of any of these pirates, including Blackbeard. No pictures drawn by anybody who'd actually seen these people themselves. So it's all secondhand at best. We don't have any accounts from the pirates' point of view. Everything we know about them is largely from the legal depositions and court testimony given by their former victims. So there are whole periods of months in some of these pirates' careers where we don't know what they were doing or what happened to them at all. And in almost all of their cases, one or two exceptions, we know almost nothing about who they were and what they did before they entered into piracy. We have a few clues here and there, but the amount of gray area in which you can operate and fictionalize without directly contradicting history is quite large with this particular gang. I didn't create scripts. They created it and may have been inspired by the history that they'd read, but my actual role in the project was taking drafts of a script that had been created, the characters were there, the plot lines were there, and trying to polish them to make them accord with history as much as possible. So I wasn't involved in developing plots or developing the gray areas. They'd already done that by the time I was involved. And it's really interesting to see, but remember, they're involved in a larger Assassin's Creed universe, with the Knights Templar and this cult of assassins are all involved that, of course, didn't exist in the real pirate universe. So they have a lot of artistic license to play with, but within that, I think they've done a great job and really captured a lot of important things about the Golden Age pirates that I hope will encourage and inspire some people who play the game to try to learn more about the real pirates that are behind all this, because their story is absolutely fascinating, and you can really feel it and get an introduction to it and the sort of themes in it in playing the game. Yes, absolutely. That really happened. It's no accident that this Golden Age piracy outbreak immediately followed the end of a major colonial war between Britain and France and Spain. And during that war, the British colony in the Bahamas Islands, including Nassau, was sacked and destroyed multiple times. And the surviving English colonists, most of them went away, and those who stayed were hiding in the jungle, basically. And at the end of the war, the pirates arrived there before the British did. And they're the ones who shored up the fort and put the guns back in place and basically created a fortified harbor from which they could not easily be kicked out. And it's because they had built that sanctuary, that the nucleus for a sort of pirate society that formed around them. So they're bringing in all this loot and treasure, and it attracts black market traders, and they build relationships where they can sell it, and ships are coming in to take their treasure and exchange it for arms and rum and weaponry and naval stores that they need to repair their vessels. And there's criminals coming in and prostitutes and escaped slaves, because slaves and all the surrounding slave plantations of the Caribbean start learning that many of the pirates appear to allow slaves to become equal members of the crews or even become pirate captains themselves. So this whole underworld society starts forming, a sort of pirate republic right in the middle of the shipping lanes back to Europe. And yes, that is all absolutely true, and one of the fascinating things about the real story of the pirates that until now has been missing from the pop culture legends we get. Yeah, in essence, I mean, to say it was a democratic republic with this sort of, constitutional arrangements that we think of in republics would be stretching it a bit. But when pirates took over a vessel, they turned the government of the ship upside down. I mean, ships were ruled in an authoritarian fashion. You had the captains, and everyone else had to do exactly what they say, and it was enforced by terrible violence. When pirates took over a vessel, the first thing they did is turn that arrangement upside down. The crew elected their captains. The crew could depose their captains by a majority vote at any time outside of combat. They elected a second official in the form of the quartermaster of the ship, another officer whose job was to keep track and report on the captain to the crew. The captain wasn't allowed to stay in a captain's cabin by himself, but had to share it with other crew members. They divided their plunder equally. So it was intentionally reordering the society of the ship from the perspective and interests of the ordinary sailors. So that's a radical democratic leveling mechanism, which was very true to the pirates. They saw themselves as sort of Robin Hood's men and fighting against an oppressive and increasing authoritarian system on behalf of ordinary people, and indeed that's what they did. And so you had all of these pirate crews loyal to different commodores coming into Nassau, and while it didn't have a unified government, you had various commodores and their crews as rival power bases, and there was order out of chaos. I mean, they had many of the pirate crews, when you joined the crew, you signed a written articles of the ship that spelled out all of these powers, and you actually had to sign it. It was almost like a constitutional act of government for the ship. So the Pirate Republic was the home shared base of all of these ship or fleet-based loyalties and competing power bases, but yeah, it was a radical democratic experiment. At a time, 2 generations before this stuff is supposed to have happened, right? Mm-hmm. This is long before the American and French revolutions. And it's a window into what ordinary, we don't see a lot of what ordinary people were thinking in the late 1600s and early 1700s. It's written from the literate people's perspective. That's what survived in history. So we have this sort of top-down perspective on things. Here's a rare data point where you're seeing what ordinary people thought. And hey, look, not only were these pirates doing this, but ordinary people throughout the colonies and back in England supported and endorsed the pirates' point of view. They liked the fact the pirates were fighting against the big guys and their oppressors, right? So here's this sort of democratic spirit long before it's supposed to be there. So it's a hint and an idea of how long ahead of the famous revolutions these kind of grievances and desires, how long they'd existed within the ordinary population of at least the Anglo-American world. Well, the general idea that you would set a game in this pirate republic and among these pirates, I think is fantastic because I wrote a book about them, and I believe their story is a fascinating story and a great setting for a game like this. But when I actually see the game now in its visual and digital form rather than script form, to be honest, the thing that I find most impressive as a video game player is the ocean engine, the recreation. unlike any other video game I've played, the ocean seems real, it moves in a real fashion, and that's quite a technical accomplishment. The lighting, and you really feel like it's an ocean surface. So I find that an impressive technical accomplishment.